Guys, we're going to start on a not so uplifting note, but this is something that I need to talk about. We came back to the U.S., my fiance and I, and my fiance is from the Boston area. So both of our hometowns have been in the news recently for very different reasons. First of all, her hometown, Boston area. Congratulations to the Boston Red Sox if you're a Boston Red Sox fan. Hope you're enjoying it. Winning the World Series is certainly an exciting thing. I'm not a baseball guy. Some of you guys know that about me. I'm just not a big baseball guy. I just don't connect with the sport, pun intended, because you connect with the ball when you hit it, huh? See? I find it slow. I find it boring. It's just not my cup of tea. I'm a hockey guy. A lot of you guys know that about me. But congrats if you're a Boston Red Sox fan. If you're a Dodgers fan, I live in Los Angeles, so I know a lot of Dodgers fans. Hey, you almost made it. It's certainly an exciting series nonetheless, and next year's a different year. So, whatever. And if you're Boston, hey, celebrate. It's your day. So her hometown was in the news for that reason. And, as far as the World Series goes, so I landed in the United States the morning of October 26th, or the afternoon, of October 26th. Time zones. I was all fucked up. My time clock's still pretty messed up. I've been waking up at like 5 a.m., and I'm like, oh, it's morning. Time to start my day. It's freaking 5. So anyway, I think I'm finally adjusted. But, so we get back, and I happen to have a comedy show that night. It's a show at a brewery in Burbank that I help run. So I wasn't sure what time I was going to land, so I was a maybe about doing a spot on the show. So I texted everybody and I said, hey, I'm home. I'd love to come do a spot. I've been on vacation. Would love to come do some comedy. And they were like, great, come on out. So I was like, cool. I show up. That was the night of the 18-inning game. A lot of the patrons were watching the game. So the bar told us, hey, start your show as soon as the game ends. We said, great. By inning 12, we realized the show wasn't happening. So I tweeted a joke. I said, hey, Ron, dear Ron, this is from the USA. We know you're not a big baseball guy, and doing stand-up comedy is one of your favorite things in the world. So a baseball game is going to take that away from you tonight. Go fuck yourself, USA. You were just in a country where no one gives a shit about baseball. And maybe that'll make you sad you left. And it did. Admittedly, it did. But what happened next was much more significant, and that's an understatement. So the morning of October 27th, and I'm recounting things from my perspective. October 27th, like I told you guys, my body clock was kind of fucked up. So I woke up at 5 a.m., and I could not fall back to sleep. My girlfriend adjusted right away, or my fiance. I got to get used to that. It's going to take a minute. My fiance got adjusted right away. She was fine. Like, she was totally she fell asleep in the evening and was... So I was like, well, good for her. But I did not adjust. So by 5 a.m., I was awake. And I was going to... I figured I might as well start my day and not infringe on hers. So I decided to just go to my gym. I belong to a 24-hour fitness in my neighborhood. I can walk there. And it's open 24 hours, which is nice. So I was like, I'll beat the crowd, go to my gym. Saw the sunrise. It was nice. So I go to my gym, and I kind of thought on my walk home I'd call my dad. Check in with him, see how his time's been. I haven't talked to him much on vacation. I did message... I messaged my parents via Wi-Fi to let them know I got engaged, obviously. So we did have some communication. It's not like I wasn't going to tell them right away, So I walked to the gym, went to the gym, and when I was on the exercise bike, there's an online newsletter I like to read. Sometimes I do it when I'm on the bike because my hands are free. And then sometimes I'll check Twitter too. And I checked Twitter and I noticed that my hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania was in the news and was trending. I had no idea why. So I looked into why. And as you guys already know, there was a brutal shooting that took place in Pittsburgh at a synagogue in the Squirrel Hill neighborhood, which is a beautiful neighborhood, one of the most beautiful neighborhoods in the city, and it is a Jewish neighborhood and a wonderful place for many reasons. And that synagogue is the biggest synagogue in the city, and it's a place, on a personal level. My mom's boss, that is his synagogue. And my dad regularly goes to Squirrel Hill on Saturdays to get baked goods. It's something he likes to do. Squirrel Hill's not very far from where I grew up. So I went from calling my dad to check in on, to say, hey, let me tell you about my vacation, to calling my dad to make sure he's okay. And, I do know a lot of people. That was their synagogue. That's their place of worship. My mom's boss, his son was there that morning. So he didn't know if his son was alive or not for a while. His son's okay. They kind of quarantined everyone and put it on lockdown and had people get out safe. But it was a weird play of events. And because, I just got back to the country. And it is painfully obvious that some of the problems we have here in the United States, they just don't have them. At least not in this way in other countries. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that England, Scotland, and Ireland don't have problems with violence. Of course they do. Every country in the world does. That's part of humanity. An ugly part of humanity. But as far as shootings are concerned, we lead the pack infinitely. And we all know why. We all know why. And there are many reasons why. Lack of gun control is one of them. A culture of violence is one of them. An economy of war is one of them. When you have an economy that revolves around killing people around the world, which is what we have, that's going to bleed over domestically. And of course, very sharp racial tension, racism, anti-Semitism, bigotry is very much alive and well and strong in the United States at a disgusting level. And yes, all of those things are found everywhere else in the world too. But, man, it's amplified here. And it was just a really frustrating experience for me because, I went to the gym early in the morning and I saw, when I was in the locker room, there was a guy there that was, he clearly had a mental problem. He was talking to himself. He was, he kept kind of just slamming the door and he kept saying, like he was kind of speaking nonsense to himself, and he was kind of just going around the locker room. And you know why he was behaving that way was most likely because that gym's his home. That's not an uncommon thing in the United States. Somebody that does not have a home, they get a gym membership. So, that they can at least go somewhere. Because keep in mind, 44% of all homeless people are working. And that's nationwide. If I had to take a guess, I wouldn't be surprised if that number was higher in California. Due to the wealth disparity we have here in California. And it's just so it was just so sad to me to see that and to know that's the reality of the country we're in, and especially in a place like California, the fifth largest economy in the world, and we have this rampant homeless problem that we're doing so little about. So just the kind of progression of seeing all of this, seeing, experiencing this, and then seeing this shooting happen in my hometown, calling my family to make sure they're okay. And, I kept abreast of what was going on via a local media personality in Pittsburgh named Sean Collier, who also does comedy. So I knew him back when I lived in Pittsburgh, still know him. He was just having breakfast in the neighborhood. And so when things started going down and he was quarantined where he was at too, he just started live tweeting what was going on. He saw the police cars going to the scene, and he was live tweeting what was going on. And man, it was just such a total mindfuck in so many ways for so many people. And, Pittsburgh is my hometown, and it's a wonderful place. In some ways, it's not a wonderful place in other ways. And just this, there's just something tragically wrong. And when people, I saw so many people that were tweeting and posting on Facebook, and they said, look, we gotta vote. And I feel like their heart's in the right place, but neither political party has done anything constructive when it comes to gun control. Neither one. And it's not until we have a massive movement that is stronger than the NRA that we'll actually see anything constructive in regards to gun control. And when are we going to recognize this is a point of crisis? When are we going to recognize, there is a Nazi sympathizer in the White House. That's just a fact. He couldn't even denounce Nazis, Donald Trump. And it's not like racism started with him or anti-Semitism started with him. Of course it didn't. But it's very amplified right now because we do have a very disgusting system at the electoral level. We have actual Nazis running for office. That is something, it's going on in Illinois. We have literal Nazis running for office. That's something that's happening in the United States, where you have a choice between a Nazi or not a Nazi. And we have a two-party system that is really just one party controlled by corporate interests and is bringing the entire country to its knees economically. And when you have a system like that, people turn to demagogues. People, that's just what is going to happen. So this idea of just going and voting one way or the other, it's not enough. So let me see what you guys are saying. It's just, we're at a point of crisis in the United States, and we've been there. This isn't anything new. And that's why someone like me, I do call for significant change. I do think we need to have our next FDR for many reasons. I do think we need to have significant social movements. And we're starting to do that. And that's good. And it just needs to continue. And I think that the type of change that I think we need is going to, at least initially, happen outside of electoral politics. Because we need to be so loud that they can't ignore us. That needs to happen. That's the way it happened with FDR. We didn't get the New Deal because FDR was some big lefty that wanted to give it to us. We got it because we were too loud to ignore. And when I say we, I don't mean me. I wasn't alive. But the labor movement was too large to ignore. The other parties that were going on in the country, communist parties, socialist parties, were too loud to ignore. They couldn't do it. So that's what needs to happen again. So when I see labor uniting, I know that that's a very good thing. When I see, groups being active about issues, I know that that's a good thing, and it needs to continue. And that's certainly not going to solve all of our problems immediately, but it's at least going to be a start. Let me see what you guys are saying, and then we're gonna move on from this. I don't want to, Mark, what was it like for you while you were, and if there's anyone else from Pittsburgh, please say something in the chat, and I'll do my best to get to it. I know the timeline, I don't get to see everything. Mark says, the particular area Bowers is from has always been racist. Driving while black became a term when Brentwood, a Pittsburgh suburb, police choked Johnny Gamage to death on a traffic stop. Yeah, Pittsburgh, and again, this is my hometown, and I'm speaking from my own experience. Pittsburgh, when it comes to racism, Pittsburgh has a lot of issues. It is a very segregated city. It is, I've traveled all over the country. It is among the more racist cities that I know of in the U.S., and that's just me being honest. There's a lot of people trying to change that. Pittsburgh's becoming a younger city. It's becoming a more diverse city. More people are going there. So it's certainly on the up, but it still has its problems, and especially, in certain areas. I mean, there is a white supremacist comedian in town. There is a literal white supremacist comic in the Pittsburgh area, and he's banned from most places. Like a lot of other comics in town have united to, make sure he doesn't have a platform. But as far as I know, he is still in the area. So, Mike S says Dennis Miller, ? No, not Dennis Miller. Not Dennis Miller. Chris says Indianapolis is extremely segregated as well. Rich white people who moved out from the city, away from poor black and brown people that they don't help. Yeah, I know. I mean, a lot of cities have their problems. I certainly don't. I know that. Let's see what else you guys are saying, and then we're going to move on here. It's kind of a depressing topic, I know, you guys, but I really did want to talk about it with you. Because I had a lot of that on my mind, especially when I was going through it on Saturday. Mark says, as a flower child of the 60s, it is disappointing that we haven't progressed further. I agree with you. Yeah. It is very sad we haven't gotten further as a country. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your